Didn't you have the weapons in your room with you when they found you?
Just a gun.
So you weren't trying to get away with it?
The gun was to be given to somebody to clean and hide.
Who are you going to give it to?
I can't tell you that. Enough people's lives have been ruined.
You've told Terry that. So someone else knew this was going to happen?
His name has never been mentioned anywhere.
It started out like any other Southern teenage romance. The pastor's daughter found a bad boy that she just couldn't resist. He was a couple years older and didn't quite put her dad's mind at ease, but his little girl was happy. At 16 years old, it was expected for Erin Caffey to have her rebellious phase, but not quite like this.
911, what's the address of your emergency?
This is Tommy Gaston. I've got a man that's been shot.
It seemed like a relatively normal evening in Alba, Texas, but Tommy Gaston was in for the surprise of his life when his neighbor, Terry Caffey, crawled to his house barely clinging to life. The scene was horrific. In the distance, his house was engulfed by flames. Tommy immediately called 911.
All right, sir, I have a few questions that I need to ask you, okay? Is he conscious?
Yes.
And is he breathing?
Yes.
When did this happen?
I don't know, just a little bit ago, and we've also got a house on fire out here.
And the house is on fire? Is the person who shot him still nearby, sir?
Yes, he's right here at me.
You shot him?
No, I didn't. I don't know any more details. I've got to hang up and help him.
Sir, I have to ask you these questions. Okay, they're en route. Is there any serious bleeding?
Yes, he's bleeding.
Okay, is he completely awake?
Yes, he's awake.
Okay, what part of the body was injured?
I don't know, but I've got to go.
Sir, I need to know where he was shot. I need to know where he was shot at.
I don't know.
First responders rushed to the scene, where they found that the truth of the incident was much darker and more twisted than they ever could have imagined. It wasn't just a man suffering from gunshot wounds, but a man who had also just watched his entire family be killed. This was no random break-in. Terry knew the assailant, and he made that clear to police. The Caffey family was the poster of a wholesome suburban family with Christian values. Terry and his wife Penny had 3 children together. 16-year-old Erin was their eldest and their only daughter. The boys, Matthew and Tyler, were 13 and 8. Terry was a pastor, and the Caffeys were very involved with their church. Erin sang in the church choir and often sang solos. It's been said that Erin's voice would sometimes move the church crowd to tears. Erin's rebellious phase manifested in the form of her 18-year-old boyfriend, Charlie Wilkinson. As any parent would be, Erin's parents were slightly apprehensive of him at first. Terry recalls the first time Charlie was invited over for dinner, where he was immediately left with a bad impression. Terry greeted him by saying, "You must be Charlie," to which he responded, "And you are?" Despite the rude response, this didn't initially sound too many alarms, and Charlie continued to join the Caffeys for dinner, even attending church with them. Although this could seem like just a rude response or a rather benign example of defiance, it's actually a significant indication of Charlie's antisocial traits. At 18 years old, and given the fact that he was meeting his girlfriend's parents for the first time, any typical teenager would have been more careful and more respectful when responding to Terry's greeting. The fact that Charlie said, "And you are," indicates that he likely sees himself at an equal level to Erin's father. Plus, it's certainly not a friendly greeting that you would give to someone you're trying to impress. It's possible that Erin could have contributed to Charlie's confidence and lack of respect. It's possible that Erin had been speaking poorly of her family to Charlie. This could be another reason why Charlie arrived with such an arrogant attitude. As time went on, Terry and Penny noticed a change in Erin's behavior. She was closed off to everyone except Charlie. They would often seclude themselves from the rest of the churchgoers after service, and sometimes engage in public displays of affection that were seen as inappropriate for a Sunday service. The parents tried to put a stop to it by limiting the time the couple spent together. They set rules such as Charlie hanging out at their house so that they would be there to supervise. He was to leave by 9 p.m. on school nights, and Erin could use her cell phone to talk to him until 10 p.m. This didn't slow their quickly intensifying relationship, however, and Charlie bought Erin a promise ring. The fact that Erin was closed off to everyone except Charlie can be considered pretty typical of her age. Adolescents can become obsessed with a boyfriend or girlfriend and can act like there's no one else in the world besides that person. It's strange how no other behavioral descriptors are given about Erin from her parents that indicate antisocial personality disorder. Maybe Erin showed more concerning behaviors, but her parents may have minimized or dismissed them. When it was clear that the relationship would continue to cause problems as long as it went on, Penny put her foot down and said the two had to stop seeing each other. Their intentions were to keep their daughter safe, but they never could have imagined the danger that was on the horizon. The night that Terry crawled to his neighbor's house, he had seen things that were straight out of a horror movie. The Caffeys were sound asleep when Terry and Penny's bedroom door swung open with a bang. Several more loud bangs followed. This time, gunshots. Bullets showered the room where they'd been sleeping peacefully just seconds ago. Both Terry and Penny were shot multiple times. Terry recognized the assailant with the gun. It was Aaron's boyfriend, Charlie. He was accompanied by his friend who would later be identified as Charles Wade. Along with guns, they were also carrying 2 large swords. Terry was lying in his bedroom, unable to move, when he heard his son Matthew cry out, "Why are you doing this, Charlie?" More gunshots followed. Wade had shot Matthew in the face. The fact that swords were used adds to the horrific nature of these murders, almost like Charlie and his friend Charles Wade were enjoying the process, acting like it was the scene of a movie and they were the villains. Or maybe they thought of themselves as the heroes. Charlie and Wade could have committed these murders with guns alone. Swords were unnecessary to accomplish what they wanted, which displays the profoundly evil intent here. And it indicates that the 2 men gained some sort of satisfaction from the process. Tyler, at only 8 years old, hid in the corner of a closet. It is unfathomable the fear that the little boy must have felt, hearing his family be brutally murdered all around him at the hands of his sister's boyfriend, knowing he would be next if they found him. Tragically, Charlie and Wade found him in the closet. The pair both stabbed Tyler to death with the swords. After, Charlie went back to Aaron's parents' bedroom and stabbed Penny in the neck with a sword to ensure that she died, nearly decapitating her. Once the 2 were sure they'd killed everyone, they set the house on fire and drove away. They never expected that Terry would make it out of the burning house alive. Terry had been in and out of consciousness during this traumatic event. Still, Terry fought for his life to make it out of the house and to his neighbors. Everybody knew each other in Alba. It wasn't long after Terry had named the killer that the police tracked Charlie down. In fact, Chief Deputy Kurt Fisher knew him well because he was a friend of Fisher's son. On his way to the crime scene, Fisher recognized Charlie's car where it was parked at Matthew Wade's single-wide trailer on his way to the crime scene. Matthew was Charles's older brother. His house became the spot, one where Charles and his friends could crash after a drunken night. When Fisher arrived, Matthew let the police enter the home, but he couldn't recall if Charlie had stayed the night there or not. Upon entry, the officers were faced with a mess of empty beer cans and dirty laundry. Wade and his girlfriend were woken up by the officers that were looking for Charlie. While searching the home, Fisher discovered a door frame that had been covered up with a blanket. He pulled back the blankets to discover Charlie lying on a mattress with a gun next to him. He had to be cautious. Charlie had just slaughtered an entire family. Who was to say that he wouldn't reach for the gun lying next to him and shoot? Fisher asked Charlie to show him his hands and then took the teen outside and told him what had happened to the Caffey family the night before. Charlie denied any involvement, claiming he got drunk that night and fell asleep. Because he was only wearing blue jeans, officers went inside to grab Charlie a shirt and shoes. When they retrieved his clothes, they noticed blood splatters. As he was taken away in the back of a squad car, firefighters were still struggling to smother the fire that swallowed the Caffey home. Despite their efforts, the entire house burned to the ground, and the bodies were eventually recovered. As police searched the trailer, they discovered a purse with Aaron's driver's license, shell casings and ammunition, and a used condom. As an officer began to tear away at piles of clutter, he saw a pile of blonde hair peeking out of one of the piles and grabbed it, assuming that it was a doll. It was a teenage girl lying in a fetal position, facing away from the officer. The officer demanded she stand up and put her hands where he could see them, but she didn't respond at all. He recognized her from the driver's license. It was Aaron. Immediately, Aaron began asking where she was and saying that she couldn't remember how she got there. She claimed that she'd been drugged the night before and didn't have many details to offer police. She claimed that she remembered a fire, 2 men in black with swords, and drinking something. After the drink, she couldn't remember anything, and her memories of earlier in the night were also blurry. Police felt sorry for Aaron and praised her strength in light of an event as traumatic as the loss of most of her family. However, as the story unraveled down at the station, it would come to light that this was not the case. Terry was certain he already knew Charlie's motive. He wanted revenge because Penny had forbidden Aaron from seeing him. Charlie's version of the story, however, was not one of rage, but of his willingness to do anything for the girl he loved. He claimed that he hadn't killed the Caffey family for revenge. He did it because Aaron asked him to. Back at the station, Charlie was extremely forthcoming, although he initially wouldn't name his accomplice. Eventually, he cracked. It was Charles Wade.
And his
really sorry about what happened, do you not think that to actually say who this other person was would show him that you really meant what you said?
I will tell you that he was the original person that was supposed to do it.
Are you going to tell me who it was?
No,
Why not?
because he had nothing to do with it and there's no way he could have stopped it.
Like I said, this whole interview has been about you apologizing for what you did.
Well, I did, and I'm very sorry for what I did.
When Charlie says, "I'm very sorry for what I did," he sounds sincere, but his tone seems matter-of-fact, or almost like he is sorry, but he was going to do this no matter what, like it was inevitable that he was going to commit these murders.
But surely this would show that you're completely sorry by making the people that could have stopped it pay a price for it. I know the story, but I just think that if this interview carries any weight, if what you've told me is true, that you genuinely are sorry. I mean, you've gone in, you clearly find it difficult talking about this person who was looking after the gun for you, who was asked to do this originally, who backed out, who knew you were going to do it, and yet didn't say anything about it.
Promise was made and I can't break it. I still can't tell you this guy's name.
It's interesting how people with antisocial personality will commit horrific acts, but then claim to stand by principles like keeping a promise. As Charlie says, "A promise was made and I can't break it." However, in this circumstance, Charlie may have said this as an excuse to avoid disclosing the name. Charlie did, however, seem to speak with conviction, and oddly enough, loyalty. It's also very possible that Charlie was trying to make himself sound righteous, or like he was trying to do the right thing in front of the investigator. Wade had agreed to help his friend carry out the murders because he'd been promised $2,000 by Aaron and Charlie. The $2,000 was in a lockbox in the Caffey home. Wade was easily convinced, intending to use this money for court fees to assist in trying to gain custody of his daughter. Contrary to his plan, murdering 4 people and setting a house on fire would prove to not be the best approach. During their interrogations, the boys were extremely forthcoming about their acts and even led the police to the evidence that they had left under the bridge and in the river. According to the boys, Aaron, Wade, and Charlie were driven to the Caffey home by Wade's girlfriend, Bobby Johnson. Wade claims that Bobby didn't know of their plan but insisted on tagging along. They weren't at the Caffey home for long before they were scared away by the family's dog, who immediately started barking loudly. Erin was not going to let this be the end of her plan. She called Charlie repeatedly in the late hours of the night, coercing him to come back and kill her parents. She said she would bring the dog inside so it didn't wake anyone up, but the boys were still hesitant, so Erin snuck out with them. Bobby drove the 3 of them to a cemetery where they sat for an hour and planned the murders of the Caffey family. Charlie said he attempted to reason with Erin multiple times, suggesting she run away instead. She insisted that she wanted them permanently gone, and not just her parents. She wanted her little brothers killed too. She said they were annoying and they picked on her. The series of events described show the severity of Erin's and Charlie's antisocial personality disorder because they extensively thought through their plan. This case was certainly not a heat of the moment or anger-fueled murder. The murders were very carefully thought out by 2 people who have no empathy and likely no conscience. Erin was apparently not disturbed by the thought of making her family suffer and putting her parents and 2 brothers through such a horrible experience, an execution-style murder. It's very likely that Erin either had a deep, long-standing hatred for her family, or her psychopathy is so severe that she truly just wanted them out of her way and had no issue with disposing of the lives of her parents and brothers. This is likely antisocial personality at its most severe, because even the worst psychopaths in history will tend to go after strangers. Those who plan and engage in not only murder, but murder carried out in such a brutal manner towards their own family are really the most dangerous types of sociopaths. The term menace to society is really made for individuals like Erin, because if she could plan something like this to happen to her own family, imagine how horrific her behavior towards others she didn't know well could have potentially been. According to their plan, Wade was to kill them while Charlie carried out the murders of her parents. They burst into the house with a .22 caliber pistol and 2 samurai swords, almost successfully carrying out their plan if Terry hadn't survived. What seemed to affect Charlie the most about that night was being ordered by Wade to make the kids come out of the locked room they were hiding in. Matthew attempted to fight Charlie off but was shot by Wade immediately. Charlie said that he couldn't handle murdering Tyler, although he did stab him once.
This is Detective Richard Allman, Rains County Sheriff's Office. Present in the room with me is
Brandon Breimer.
You're friends with both of them?
Yes, sir. I'm friends with all 4 of the people involved.
Okay, did you come voluntarily?
Yes, sir.
We did not call you, correct?
No, sir.
You came of your own free will?
Yes, sir. To
tell you some information that we thought you might need.
What information is that?
Well, I got a collect phone call from Mr. Charlie Wilkinson. It's kind of foggy, really, because, it's just so upsetting.
So yesterday evening you get a phone call from Charlie calling you collect from the jail.
Yes, sir.
And he's crying and upset, is that correct?
Yes,
is that
sir.
what you're telling me?
Yes, sir. He was crying the entire time.
Although this can be viewed as remorse, it could also simply be a show of emotion because he was caught and was in jail. Although Charlie sounded remorseful in the interrogation, it's difficult to be certain about his actual remorse. People with antisocial personality disorder will often cry and claim to be regretful once they're caught.
Crying the entire time, and what was he upset about?
About everything, I guess.
Okay.
The crime, mostly, I reckon. I asked him how he was doing. I asked him if he did the crime, and he gave me some details.
What did he say when you asked him if he did the crime?
Well, I said, Charlie, this is what I said. I said, Charlie, did you pull the trigger? I have to know. He said, yes, I shot the mom and the dad, but I did not shoot the kids. He said he couldn't pull the trigger on the little kids.
Charlie described to Brandon how Charles had to finish killing Aaron's parents and he had to go outside because he could not kill the children. However, this phone call could have been strategically planned by Charlie to try to claim his innocence since he was already in jail and he knew he would likely be facing serious charges.
Had you ever had conversations with Charlie before about any of this?
About a month ago, he was telling me that his girlfriend was thinking about it. Charlie was telling me, I asked him, he came over and it was just a typical hangout night. I said, what's new, Charlie? And he said, well, Erin's talking about murdering her parents. And I was like, no way. He was like, yeah, she is. And I was like, she trying to get you to do it? And he was like, yeah, but I can't, dude. They got 2 little kids in that house. I was like, I know. If you ever need help, just come to me, Charlie. I'll keep you out of trouble. But seems like it didn't work. I asked him why he did it and what he was thinking when he did it, and he just never really gave me a flat-out answer on that.
Charlie and Aaron had plenty of time to show real remorse as they were planning these murders. There was a span of time where they could have realized what they were doing was horrific, but the thing with sociopaths is that they really only focus on achieving what they want. The means to the end is simply just a transaction. In Charlie and Aaron's case, it seems like it was just a puzzle they had to piece together so they could plan the events in a way that would allow them to succeed in committing the murders.
Any indication that this was going on?
No, sir. I've seen Bobby and Charles, I think, Friday night, but they were, just happy as bluebirds. Didn't show no signs of anything.
Okay.
And when I seen Charlie on Thursday, he didn't show like he was going to do anything. He was just happy-go-lucky.
Brandon said he saw Charlie before the murders, and he described him as happy-go-lucky. It's possible that his attitude was this way because the murders were already planned and everything was set to take place. Brandon said the same about Charles and Bobby. This is very odd, to say the least, given that this group was about to enter a home, kill a family, and then burn the house down. Aaron and Charlie were eager to materialize their plan, and Charles and Bobby may have been excited to get the money that was promised to them for their participation. Wade recalled Aaron being elated when they returned to the car with her packed suitcase. Once she had their confirmation that her family was gone, she gave them the combination to the lockbox that contained the money. They also took all the money from Terry and Penny's wallets, which added up to about $400. They then set furniture and blankets on fire with pocket lighters, watching the house go up in flames as they pulled away in Bobby's car. Aaron had shouted, "Holy shit, that was awesome," and told them how relieved she felt. During his interrogation, Wade said that Aaron was as happy as a kid on Christmas. They went to the river where they tossed Aaron's suitcase, the swords, and bloody boots in a box. Their plan was to come back for these items. Finally, Bobby dropped Aaron and Charlie off at Matthew Wade's trailer. They celebrated their completed mission by sleeping together. When Bobby was questioned, she pleaded ignorance to the whole thing. She finally cracked when she learned that the police already had the 2 boys in their custody. She confessed to everything. While Wade, Charlie, and Bobby were all telling stories that corroborated with each other, Aaron was still sticking to her story that she didn't remember anything, but the results of her toxicology report had just come in. There were no drugs found in her system and no signs of smoke inhalation. Back at the hospital, Terry was recovering despite all odds being against him. He had fractured both of his cheekbones, broken his nose, and suffered from nerve damage in his right arm. When detectives came to talk to him, he asked about his daughter's involvement in the deaths of their family. They said one earth-shattering sentence that would make Terry's suffering so much heavier. Her involvement was great. He immediately cried out in despair. It was inconceivable that his sweet little girl could have done something so evil. Upon being told he could go home, he broke down again. He had nothing. He didn't have a home to go to, or anyone to come home to. He stayed with his sister as he continued to live out the nightmare that had become his reality. Erin was placed under arrest but denied her involvement through tears. Because she was a minor, she couldn't be immediately questioned. This small blonde 16-year-old was not the suspect they had imagined was the mastermind behind this gruesome plot to have her family killed. She wouldn't agree to speaking with investigators, choosing to write a statement instead. Still, she didn't budge from her story. Erin was placed in a juvenile detention center where she was held on murder charges. Terry visited Erin at the juvenile detention center, but because every conversation they had was recorded and could be used against her in trial, he couldn't ask her any questions, like why had she done such a heinous thing. Still, he had been shown every piece of evidence by investigators, so he knew all of the disturbing details. Despite having every reason to stop visiting Erin, Terry continued. Erin was sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences plus 25 years for capital murder on January 2, 2009. Charlie and Wade were both given life without the possibility of parole for their crimes. Bobby was sentenced to 40 years. As it stands today, Terry still visits with Erin. In fact, he fights for her early release. Despite seeing the evidence, he still can't bring himself to believe that his daughter could be capable of such a thing. She has told him different stories about the events that took place the night that the Caffey family was killed. In one, she told him that Charlie wanted them dead, and her phone calls to him that night were her trying to talk him out of it. Terry believes that Erin didn't truly think Charlie would follow through with the acts. Unbeknownst to him, Charlie was not the first person that Erin had tried to employ to carry out her plan. A previous boyfriend claimed that Erin had asked him to carry out the same crime when they were dating. This ex-boyfriend of hers was not willing to go to the lengths that Charlie was to make her happy. He thought she was crazy and immediately told her to leave. This fact reveals a couple more details about Erin and her severe psychopathy. She was likely very manipulative, particularly with her boyfriends. She may have used various manipulation tactics, such as urging her past boyfriend to do this for her to keep her happy. She may have also used this approach with Charlie because in the interrogation recording, Charlie almost sounded like what he did was inevitable, but he also sounded genuinely remorseful, almost like he had to do it. This fact about Erin also, of course, reveals that she was planning this for a long time, meaning that she was planning the murders of her parents and brothers, all while living with them, going to church with them, having dinners, etc. This shows the severity of her antisocial personality because she was able to have these horrible sentiments about her family while interacting with them on a daily basis. Her ability to do this while having the desire to see them dead shows her profound detachment from emotion, her lack of empathy, and the absence of any moral conscience. Terry has remarried since the murders and had one more biological child. He and his new wife also adopted 3 children. He founded the Forgiveness Project and wrote a book titled Terror by Night, the true story of the brutal Texas murder that destroyed a family, restored one man's faith, and shocked a nation. As of 2021, Erin is 29 years old and will not be eligible for parole for another 30 years. Charlie Wilkinson and Charles Wade will spend the rest of their lives in prison, dealing with the consequences of their cruel actions.